I want to be employed. I want to be a salary person. I want to work for a company and not necessarily be my own boss. Let me explain why. I think that everybody on the internet at some point was fed the idea of becoming your own boss, having your own company, becoming a self made billionaire. And this message is repeated again and again by an endless list of YouTube videos and Instagram reels. Now, there's nothing wrong with being your own boss. I don't think there is, especially in a world as volatile as this one, where it is wiser to have a stable or independent financial life, to be able to support one's life without depending on somebody else's decisions, right? That's why it's there. And also I think it's become very popular because the idea has been glamorized. After the birth of the information age, and we had our Mark Zuckerberg, sorry, and our Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, the pioneers of the new industrial revolution, the information. And I get it, I really do, because for a long time I too was thoroughly convinced about this. But my experience of this topic came to an end when I finally realized that, hey, I think I might be fine being an employee, working for somebody else, being under the wing of a person's vision. And that's perfectly fine. The thing is, if I tell this to any one of my friends, the chances are I'm going to be looked at, well, not because they don't support me or think less of me, but simply because it's not the doctrine that we teach ourselves, or at least the message we keep on reiterating, that, hey, we should become our own bosses. They'll look at me as like I'm giving up or I'm choosing a lesser option. But I don't think so. And I don't blame anybody, and I don't think it's a bad decision to fold either way. But I fear that many people like myself have been so much invested in this idea they can barely think about doing anything else with their lives other than trying to be the next Bill Gates or something like that. For me, I think the influence for trying or at least attempting to become your typical self-made billionaire came from my brother. It was unintended pressure, but it was all in good faith. You see, for my brother, his name is Leroy, the idea of employment was never on the table. He never saw himself as a salaried person, somebody waking up, having a regular 9 to 5 and taking orders from somebody else. He is an expressive individual and is able to work towards that. He has the capacity to sustain his own dreams. And even till this day, he acts and behaves like this. But recently, we actually had this conversation, and he told me that perhaps, trying to follow him, because I'm his younger brother, you see somebody older and somebody you admire, and you're like, yeah, sure, I wanna be like that. But seeing that I've grown up, and even the way that I think and operate, I don't think that trying to dig out, like we discussed, trying to have that entrepreneurial dream is for me. I think I would work best in an environment where I am able to prop up somebody else's vision or dream, because I have the capacity to operate really well within a pre-established system, because it may not be in me necessarily to start something new. And for me, the dream was largely supported by the fact that my mom, for a very, very long time, was employed. And although towards the end of her employment, the economy crashed and the company was not treating her particularly well, but when she first got the job at a company called Complex, she was well paid for the time. The company had incredible benefits. They sent me to school, which my mom could select whatever school she wanted me to go to, and the school would pay for it, right? Up until, I think, in Form 2 and, when in high school, when things got a bit more difficult and the economy slummed. But for whatever it is worth, my mother's degree did pay off. And then she went on to get another one in marketing. She had one in animal healthcare. And she did very well for herself. It's just very unfortunate that the economy came back and bit her in the behind and everybody else, and being employed was no longer viable. Zimbabwe has detached itself from becoming a place for the average Joe who just wants a desk job, because it requires us to be innovators, pioneers, people like my brother. But even as true as that is, not everybody is going to be out here in the streets hustling. And not everybody is going to succeed. Some people are just not built for that kind of environment, because it takes a different kind of tenacity, a different kind of grit to get through all of that, all of those challenges. But even though I've made my decision and I'm pretty convinced by it, there is a valid discussion to be had about what one gives up when they choose either side. You know, it's not all rainbows and sunshine simply because now you're employed and you have a salary and your money is almost guaranteed to come every month. But because of that, you tend to give up a lot. One of the things that you give up as an employee is, where should I start? I think it's okay, the most important thing that you give up as an employee is freedom. It's the ability to create as much as you want. It is the chance to express yourself in your job. Because when you're employed, you're already part of a pre-established image, a vision that somebody already has, and what you are meant to do is amplify it or make it better or contribute to it. You're not necessarily meant to innovate off the spot unless you know that is your job, but you are just supposed to keep that machine running. And that doesn't allow you to create. That doesn't allow you to be innovative. You're often put within the confines of what is already there and what is pre-established. And if you don't follow, you're simply not doing your job. Keep what is already there alive. And your job is and you get paid to sustain it. You know, you're supposed to just keep it as it is. And also, you don't necessarily just give up freedom in terms of working, but you also give up your time. Because a job, right, simply defined as in exchange for time and skill for money. You can give them the skill of which you don't have the ability to express yourself in that skill sometimes. And also, you're not supposed to do anything else within that time other than that job. You'll find many people who work at companies that, or whose bosses have the audacity to call you at the middle of the night and ask you for a report, or you're supposed to report in early every morning and you're supposed to come in and stay up late. And all of this is part of the course. I don't necessarily think that luxury of being able to come in and do whatever it is that you want, whenever you want, is something that can be granted to you. I think it's a fair trade, because worse off if you're giving up more of your time, very precious time, you get paid even more for it. That's in a fair system and in situations where you are respected as an employee. But all of this is kind of switched up and reversed when you are an entrepreneur. But a benefit that comes with being employed is that the risk of going home hungry is not solely on you. You are under somebody who, under contractual obligation, you are supposed to work for, and they're supposed to pay you. Whether or not that boss has made a profit or not, or whether they have been able to reach whatever quota they'd set for themselves, you're supposed to get paid, and you will. And that's perhaps a far safer net than what the entrepreneur has to enjoy, because as a self-employed individual, it's up to you. You go home broke according to how you personally perform. There's nobody else who's going to come in and bail you out. It's all about you and your efforts, and whether or not you've been able to make money that day or not. And also another thing that I think employees take for granted is that the weight of leading any business is really heavy. People don't ever consider it, that being a boss means that you are now responsible for other people's lives. I experienced this firsthand when, for the very first time, I gave somebody a paycheck. A bit of backstory. In 2021, I worked at my dad's butcher shop. And I was a young kid, and I had just one individual underneath me whom I worked with at the time. And I remember the first time that we're supposed to hand out, money for work done during the course of the month. My mom was like, hey, you should be the one to do it because you're heading it. And that was the very first time I was like a big boy, because I was giving somebody older than I am some money. All right. And when I did, I gave the lady some money, and she said thank you, and she was grateful. She went home. When I got back home, I thought to myself, that's odd. I just gave this lady the money that she will use to pay rent, eat, send her kids to school, and that money has to be given to her whether or not I made a profit, whether or not the business made a profit, whether or not I'm able to have a good time or not, because she depends on me. And there's a certain amount of humility that comes with that. I think an acknowledgement of your position and, frankly, your privilege and how much power you have over them. That's something that people don't consider, is that, oh yeah, you want to be a boss, but then the instant you employ just one other person other than yourself, you are held accountable for them. In large part, their quality of life, their standard of living, and whether or not they're satisfied with what they're doing or not. And that's something that somebody who is employed never really has to worry about, because you're the one to be pleased. That's why maybe other companies would treat talent very well, give them benefits and keep them happy and cheery about their job and so on. And that's something that people don't necessarily think about when they want to become an entrepreneur. And we take for granted when we're employed because, well, it's not my duty. I'm just happy to be here and getting my paycheck. But on the flip side, the liberties that come with being an entrepreneur are irreplaceable. They are so valuable. It's unlike anything else out there. You can do it whatever time you want. That's it. Like, you can wake up at 12 midday and get up and pursue your passion or whatever it is that you're doing at the time. But like I said earlier, that's not a privilege that employees face. You're on a strict time code. You have to be there doing certain things at a certain time. And also, for those who cherish creative endeavors, as an entrepreneur, you get to express yourself in all kinds of ways. You don't have to abide to certain restrictions and be like, oh, well, I have to do this, or my boss said I want that. Nah, you can simply make whatever it is you want to make. You're the one who's creating a product that you want to sell, and then you make money from that. In matter of fact, as an entrepreneur, the success of some of these businesses depends solely on your ability to create, to innovate, to come up with more, to be able to push the envelope, whatever it is that you're doing. And there's freedom for that, because you are not under the wing of somebody else and who holds you at creative gunpoint by way of a salary. And also, being an entrepreneur, statistically speaking, I'm not too sure. Of course, not everybody who becomes an entrepreneur becomes successful, but for those that do become successful, the goal of financial independence is far closer than a salaried individual. Often at times, your lifestyle depends solely on how much money you earn as an employee, whereas an entrepreneur can build their life to fill their pocket or simply expand their wallet to match it, whatever it is they want to do, because, it's up to them. Of course, you can earn more money as an employee, by climbing the corporate ladder and proving yourself in whatever environment you need to. And many people find great success in that, and there's no fault in that. But also, we also tend to neglect the overarching restriction that come with being an employee. Now, whenever one makes this decision, the reason why I did so, I think this should be the main point that you take away from this. The main reason why I decided to become, or at least chose and said to myself, hey, I want to be employed, is because first, I work best in the system. I recognize that. I am able to harness whatever talent I have, whatever skills I have, and apply them to a job in which these efforts are directed to grow something else. I am getting into communication and advertising and marketing, and I am able to fall in love with the idea of a brand, the vision of somebody else, and invest my time, effort, and skills into that and expand. And also, the kind of trouble that comes with being an entrepreneur is not something that I'm particularly built out for. mind you, there is struggle wherever you go. Either you become self-employed or you work for somebody else, you will face challenges. You will face some sort of adversity and I'll be honest, that is the kind of challenges that I want. Not want, but I think that I can handle. I'm okay with that. And while you might think, well, you haven't tried to become an entrepreneur. Granted, I haven't. But I've seen my brother's struggles. And there's nothing wrong with it. They're definitely different. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy for me to be employed, but man, some people should really try, because some people are just not that kind of person. It's hard. I said in my last podcast that it is really difficult to hold out to a dream or hold on to something that you're not going to experience immediately. Right? Like when you're an entrepreneur, you are trying to hold on day by day, trying not to give your time and skills to somebody else, invest them in yourself and let them grow. That is very, very taxing, because keeping yourself mentally invested into that is a job on its own. And not to say that I'm incapable of that. Maybe in a different circumstance I would be, but I know for a fact that my struggle would rather come from proving myself again and again in an environment where it is required for me to be innovative within a certain guideline, where, you know, I am propped up by me making progress. And also, this also came from a confidence that I've built, you know. Like I said earlier, there is a certain amount of, not shame, but, you know, expectation that people around me would have, you know, because I had for the longest time put myself, or at least presented myself as the kind of guy who's going to start some sort of business and become some kind of entrepreneur. But I think it's fine to be employed. You know, I said this to my brother, that he, for a very long time, put in me the fear of not pushing to not be employed, right? Because employed people often viewed as toys or mere slaves or tools for other people. But I've come to realize, I think even when you are employed, become an entrepreneur. We discussed this. Still innovate, still create, still push to be more. Even when you know that there's a paycheck coming, do not become complacent. That is when even you find people who have good jobs, have the opportunity to make more of themselves, simply don't. And also that I've taken confidence in recognizing what my heroes could look like, or the people that I choose to admire. Earlier I pointed out that the internet has become obsessed with creating the next industrial pioneers. And while not everybody who is successful is those people, right? For instance, I admire a lady called Lisa Su. I think she's the head, she is the head of AMD right now. And she's the one that has brought the company from the brink of bankruptcy and brought it up into the new age. And AMD is succeeding and has Intel shaking in its boots. And also I'm a fan of Satya, you know, the current head of Microsoft, you know. And by all definition, these are employees. They answer to board members. They are accountable to other people. And these other people are the ones that direct them and help them. But even when you talk to them, even when they're interviewed, even when you see their videos on YouTube, you can tell that, yes, they might be under the wing of somebody else, but they still put in the effort to be more than just an employee. That's why they head these companies. And that's something that, you know, the goal of being an entrepreneur has driven me to appreciate, is that, oh yeah, I should, even if I am employed, still push to be myself, be better, be the best at is whatever that I do. And it's perfectly fine. So please, when we are making decisions as to whether or not we want to become employed entrepreneurs, I beg that nobody make this decision, one, out of fear of not being seen as successful, and two, recognizing where you fit in. Even for some people who want to be employees should be just entrepreneurs. Some people who want to be under the wing of somebody else should go out there and do their own things, and be able to recognize that you're that kind of person. be okay with it and invest in it. And that's what we should all think about at some point. And there's no shame in either. Please, the respect allocated to both endeavors is well earned. At the end of the day, it's all about, becoming successful and proving yourself capable in whatever environment. And whatever medium you use to make that happen, let it be. Stick to it and run with it. Don't either be ashamed or be pressured to pursue anything else other than what or where you're meant to be.